One, I hope you're having, or you've had a beautiful public holiday, or Australia has anyway. So in Australia today, we had a public holiday. It's Australia Day. It's a monumental historical day where Captain Cook came and settled with a new fleet of people, and you know, there's a big part of today that holds diversity at the moment because the public are wanting it to be changed. Well, some of the public are wanting it to be changed. Look, in history, actually, I'm going to start on a story. So the story goes that when I was in high school, I was studying I was in my home economics class, and our teacher asked us what our thoughts were in terms of what Australian cuisine was. And our answer, we got the top answer for the for the exercise, but our answer was that what we felt Australian culture or Australian food culture was multicultural. You know, so many different nationalities, so many beautiful foods, so much. And if you've ever travelled, and I've travelled a lot, if you've ever travelled, you're always going to find foods that are going to be diversified, either depending on their niche market or their country or their produce or anything like that. So when you eat food in different countries, it doesn't necessarily always taste the same. So the best thing about Australia is the multiculturalism and our access to beautiful food, beautiful cultures, and learning to different cultures and meeting different cultures. Also, over the years, people have diversified and intermixed and interracial families and things like that as well. So the best thing about being Australian is the opportunity to live in such a beautiful country, first of all, and a really genuinely lucky country as well. Like, if people would love to live and grow up in Australia, depending on where they come from. So Captain Cook on the 26th of January, all those years ago, really made a difference to history and gave us all an opportunity to live on this great land. Indigenous community are one of the most historically advanced in a lot of ways to go through what they've gone through in history, and I've heard some speeches, you know, I've heard them talk about, they're so ahead when it comes to these arguments in terms of what I've experienced so far, and have really healed and accept people as one, as they deserve to be respected and treated as one as well. I think where the diversity lies the most, you've got the Indigenous, well, I'm not going to label it as Indigenous because there's going to be Indigenous community members that don't agree with this. So you've got the healed ones, which are people that are grounded, are completely open to multiculturalism. They're completely and utterly not in the argument, you know, and don't really worry in that aspect because they accept anybody. Then you've got the people that unconsciously racist, so they might be the ones that snarl a little bit or whatever, but correct their behavior because they kind of wake up and they're like, oh, this is not really who I am, and they get on with it, and you know, or you know, apologize if they've done the wrong thing. Then you've got people that are super racist, and then you've got people that are really confused as well. So I think the super racist, the super confused, and in this particular argument, it's not a racism thing, but it does sit in the racism category because there is a lot of diversity in terms of their feelings and hard feelings towards the argument, and what Captain Cook settling in Australia actually means. Him settling in this country gave every single civilian in this country an opportunity in Australia, and that's it. I know that it came with diversity. I know that it would have come with a lot of argument. Not only did the Indigenous people suffer, but the convicts that came on those fleets also would have suffered. To raise a community of people in this country around those times, and even in these times currently, would be a really difficult task, especially with so much diversity. And I think the saddest thing I've seen is the vandalism that comes with these arguments, you know, with John Cook's Captain James Cook, James Cook, yeah, I should respect him enough to know his name. Captain Cook, his statue, you know, being vandalised and things. That's history, you know. That's history. That's it. You know, if you're Australian, you appreciate our history, and You can argue, Jane, Captain James Cook's legacy tainted just by his presence and the whole thing that happened there. But you've also tainted Australian history and the legacy of being Australian, and the argument of him goes against the opportunity that we have as civilians and people on this wonderful land. So it's a bit of a contradictory in terms of its argument itself, but the reason why people are upset is because they're not really connected to that nature where they can appreciate the history, they can appreciate the diversity, multiculturalism of all people here. They can give legacy to the Indigenous people in a way to give them the honour of being the First Nations people and really priding their existence in the opportunities we have in Australia as well, and all of those things, So it really comes down to what is Australian about vandalising Australian property. And today will always be Australia Day, full stop. That's it. Whether or not it's a celebrated public holiday, it will always sit in legacy. And also, whatever they choose and decide to go, if they were to change the day, will also be a new time in legacy. I just hope that they don't do that at the back end of somebody vandalising the country or vandalising our property, and they do it for the right reasons. Because if you're Australian, you accept everybody, including our history, which is Captain James Cook coming to Australia and settling a new fleet, and also raising a country that prides itself on being multicultural.